Elite Facts presents
7 of the biggest modern con artists.
7.
Zillion OP fakes disability. Okay, now this one is probably the most tame on this list, but it might also be the most unethical scam ever pulled. Now, with the internet being as big as it is in recent years, you just know a lot of people are going to take advantage of it. Take Zillion OP, for example. In the early 2010s, live streaming became a widespread phenomenon. Everyone jumped on the bandwagon. Zillion OP decided to try it out for himself as he was a disabled man in a wheelchair who loved video games and the idea of streaming out to a widespread audience. Like many Twitch users, Zillion OP allowed viewers to donate money, and some people did. Then on April 5th, viewers watched in shock as Hamilton performed a miracle by standing up from his wheelchair and walking mid-stream. Footage of the random event was recorded by viewers who erected threads and an angry website in response. These viewers felt misled. Public consensus, which was based on what viewers had seen on earlier streams, was that Hamilton was completely disabled. As such, standing up from his wheelchair was determined to be impossible. Although he didn't return the money to those who donated, he did have his Twitch account permanently banned. Needless to say, we think he got off easy.
6.
Frank Abagnale. Said to be one of the most famous con artists in the game's history, Frank Abagnale is a former Czech con artist, forger, and imposter who, for 5 years way back in the 1960s, passed bad checks worth more than $2.5 million in 26 countries. All of his escapades have been well documented in the 2002 film Catch Me If You Can, which is based on his life. It has been documented that his first experience in the world of fraud was as a youth, when he used his father's mobile card so he could buy various car parts and then would sell them back to the same gas station at a lower price. He did not realize that his father was the one who had to foot the bill, and when he was eventually confronted with the fraud, his mother sent him for 4 months to a juvenile correction facility. When he finally moved to New York, Frank lived solely on the income of his fraudulent activities. One of his most famous tricks was to print his own account number on fake bank deposit slips so that when clients of the bank deposited money, it would actually go into his account. By the time the banks realized what had happened, Frank was already $40,000 up and out of their sights. For 2 years, he traveled around the world free by masquerading as a Pan Am pilot. He was able to abuse the professional courtesy of other airlines to provide free transport for competing airline pilots if they had to move to another city at short notice. After almost being caught leaving a plane, he was quick to change his masquerade to that of a doctor. He worked as a medical supervisor for 11 months without being detected. Now that, admittedly, is impressive. After finally being caught, he was given 12 years in prison. He escaped from his prison by masquerading as an undercover officer of the Bureau of Prisons. He was once again captured in New York City and returned to jail. After serving only 5 years of his sentence, the U.S. federal government offered him his freedom in return for helping the government against fraud and scam artists without pay. He currently runs Abagnale & Associates, a financial fraud consultancy company, and is a multi-millionaire.
5.
Lou Pearlman. Next up, we have world-famous American record producer Lou Pearlman. Pearlman is the man who can take credit for finding the boy bands Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. Even with his successful career as a record producer, he still managed to get himself tangled up in the world of crime and fraud. As of right now, he's currently in prison after orchestrating a Ponzi scheme of his own. Pearlman is believed to have left investors missing a total of $300 million. Pearlman was getting investments for companies that he had fraudulent paperwork for. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison in 2008, but was given a chance to reduce his sentence by a month for every $1 million he helped recover.
4.
Bernard Madoff. Next up, we have Bernard Madoff, who was born in 1938. Madoff had been living as a stockbroker, financier, and investment advisor. But that's not what we're all going to remember him for. No, instead we'll remember him for that one incredibly shady business venture that has earned him the title of one of the greatest scam artists of the last century. So in case you're unaware, Bernie Madoff was at one point in his life the chairman of the NASDAQ. That is a pretty big deal. Even with this high-ranking position in the world of stocks and shares, he is also known for what is believed to be the largest Ponzi scheme in history. In 2009, he pleaded guilty to 11 federal felonies and told authorities that he turned his wealth management organization into a Ponzi scheme that cost investors billions of dollars. He was sentenced to 150 years in prison and is currently being held at Butner Federal Correctional Institution.
3,
Shara Marsh. Next up on the list, we have Shara Marsh. Living on incapacity benefits, Marsh decided that it would be the best of times to enter the world of fraud as she posed as a French-Iranian heiress called Madame de Savigny and tricked Europe's top auction houses and shops out of more than $2.6 million worth of art, clothes, and jewels. Following her arrest for bouncing checks in 2006, police uncovered $1.3 million worth of goods in a lockup in London's Docklands. Among the haul, police found a diamond ring worth more than $130,000 and even a Napoleon III bureau. Marsh, a British national of Iranian origin, admitted to 20 charges of fraudulently obtaining and concealing goods. As expected, she was sentenced to 6 years in prison for her little fraudulent escapades.
2,
Nick Lewison. Next up, we have derivatives trader Nick Lewison, who is well known for bringing us Barings Bank, the UK's oldest investment bank, after making a series of unauthorized trades from his desk in Singapore. January 16, 1995, his fraudulent activities would come to the public's eye after Lewison wagered that the Japanese stock market would not move significantly overnight. Little did he know the Kobe earthquake would strike in the early hours the following morning and would send the Asian markets and his trading positions into free fall. The bank's losses ran to twice its trading capital, just over $1.3 billion, and resulted in it being declared insolvent the following month. After going on the run, Lewison was caught and extradited to Singapore, where he was sentenced to 6.5 years in Shanghai prison.
1,
James Hogue. Last up on this list, we have J. Mitchell Huntsman, who early in his life was an orphan who grew up in a commune and went to Palo Alto High School in 1986. Sounds like he had a pretty decent upbringing considering the circumstances, doesn't it? Well, not quite. J. Mitchell Huntsman passed away back in 1969 at just 2 days old. His identity was stolen by James Hogue, a 26-year-old multiple felon who was 10 years older than he claimed. He enrolled at Princeton University in 1988 under the name Alexei Indris Santana, whose fictional pastimes included running barefoot in the Nevada desert. A former Palo Alto High School classmate spotted him and alerted school officials, and Hogue eventually pled guilty to theft by deception for collecting a $22,000 scholarship from Princeton. In 2007, Hogue pleaded guilty to a felony theft charge in Telluride, Colorado, in exchange for a relatively light sentence of 10 years.
Don't forget to like us and subscribe for more elite facts.